I got good news, Dolphins fans. Every single team is now in the NFL offseason as Seattle defeated the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60. But the way this Seahawks team is constructed, I think should leave Dolphins fans inspired about a potential quick turnaround. And there could be a lot of similarities drawn between Seattle's GM, the Dolphins GM, the Dolphins head coach, and the Seahawks head coach. I think there's a lot of optimism to be had after seeing the blueprint from Seattle, and I'll explain why on today's show. But I know you guys are fired up about the New England Patriots being embarrassed in Super Bowl 60. If you're fired up they didn't win, hit that thumbs up button. But as we take a look at how the Seattle Seahawks are constructed, I think Dolphins fans should feel pretty good about the vision and plan that Miami has to build out this roster. Let's quickly start with the GM. John Schneider, who has been one of the best NFL executives in the last decade. But you know who worked really closely with John Schneider before he got the Seahawks job? Oh yeah, Jon-Eric Sullivan. They both grew up, they both blossomed within the Green Bay Packers organization under the legendary Ron Wolf. So the same principles that the Seahawks GM John Schneider has in building a football team, same exact principles that the new GM in Miami, Jon-Eric Sullivan, has. So that is something that provides me optimism. But how about the head coach in Seattle, Mike Macdonald? He is in his second year. But what does he do? He is a defensive-minded coach who calls the plays. Now, he obviously learned underneath Harbaugh in Baltimore and was the defensive coordinator there for a little bit before getting the Seattle job. Halfley obviously was with LaFleur in Green Bay. But I think that the idea of having a defensive head coach that calls plays can really allow you to have a better feel on the game, feel for better strategic plans with your timeouts being used in going for it situations. Like Macdonald knew last night that his defense was so locked in, they had Drake May rattled, that they didn't need to press the issue on offense. They just played simple, methodical football, didn't make any mistakes, took their points in the red zone, and won that game by a pretty healthy margin. I think having a defensive head coach that calls plays allows him to potentially have his more of a thumb and finger on what is needed by the team. But more importantly, and this goes back to the team building ideals and the ideology of building out a good football team. But Seattle built 90% of this Super Bowl team through the draft. Now, yeah, they made some splash signings, whether it be Sam Darnold or whether it be DeMarcus Lawrence, but the basis of this team is through the draft. And that is the same thing Miami will need to do, and it's the same thing they've said consistently through the media that they will do. Because you look at the Seattle offense, and 8 of 11 starters were drafted. All 5 of their offensive linemen were drafted within the last 4 years. Obviously, you have the Sam Darnold signing, but you drafted Jaxon Smith-Njigba. You drafted A.J. Barner. You drafted Kenneth Walker. The only players that weren't drafted on the offensive end for Seattle was Darnold, Rashid Shaheed, who they traded for at the deadline, just a simple day 3 pick, and then Cooper Kupp, who they signed in free agency. So mostly everyone was drafted. Defense is a little bit of a different story, but the basis there is drafted. Devon Witherspoon, Byron Murphy, Nick Emenwari, Riq Woolen. They brought in DeMarcus Lawrence. They drafted Derick Hall. They brought in Ernest Jones. But like my point is that with the Seahawks defense, they drafted mostly everybody, but because Mike Macdonald was trying to install his defense soon, he made signings out there in trades that made a better scheme fit for that defense. Like, I just want to go over how ridiculously successful Seattle has been at drafting over the last 4 years. You go back to 2022. They drafted 5 legit starters in that draft. Charles Cross, their starting left tackle. Abraham Lucas, their starting right tackle. Round 1, round 3. The Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker. Round 2. Coby Bryant, starting DB in round 4. Riq Woolen, starting corner, round 5. You go to 2023, they drafted another 5 starters. Devon Witherspoon and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, all pro-level guys, both in round 1. Derick Hall had a big sack last night, round 2. Now, Zach Charbonnet didn't play, but him and Kenneth Walker all year were a nasty 1-2 punch. He was drafted in the second round. And then another starting offensive lineman, Anthony Bradford, found in round 4. Over the last 2 years, Seattle drafted one of the most disruptive interior defensive linemen out of Texas, Byron Murphy, 2024. Starting tight end who caught a touchdown, A.J. Barner last night. And then 3 great rookies, Gray Zabel, who was phenomenal last night, Nick Emenwari, who's been unbelievable, arguably should have been Defensive Rookie of the Year, and then Riley Mills, who had a sack last night, the rookie D lineman out of Notre Dame. Like, you look at the success Seattle has had drafting, and that just tells you how important that part of your team building is. Like, yeah, you could make splashy signings, you can make trades, but the truth is, if you want sustained success in the National Football League, you have to be able to draft not only in round 1, but in every single round. Like, just go back, not even to Seattle, but how about Philadelphia a year ago? I mean, we have back-to-back Super Bowls that were blowouts because the one team had a dominant defense and a dominant defensive line, and the other had a weak bottom half offensive line. Like, you could say what you want about Drake May, but the same thing happened to Patrick Mahomes a year ago. When you have an offensive line just getting manhandled and getting crushed when the opposing team is just rushing 4 consistently, you stand no chance. You could drop 7 in coverage and get home with 4. The offense has no ability. But the Eagles, the Seattle Seahawks, they dominated the trenches, they consistently hit on draft picks in all rounds, and they developed their own. That is how you have success in today's NFL. Like, yeah, Jalen Hurts and Darnold are making money, but no one will say that, oh my God, these guys are the elite top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. No, they just made plays when they had to, and the rest of their team dominated. And I think this is going to be Miami's plan. They've stated it multiple times how they're going to draft, develop, retain their own, and they'll have to find a veteran quarterback to manhandle the ship here. But what you saw from Seattle is kind of what Miami's plan will be. Let's see if they can execute it at the same level. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is over, but that leaves us with basketball, baseball on the horizon, hockey, and you could shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss your chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. So simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. You can also find your community on Prize Picks with the new social feeds feature. Share your Prize Picks lineup with friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. This is where I'm looking in basketball today. More on Brandon Miller points, more on Duncan Robinson 3-point attempts, and less on Nolan Traore 3-point attempts. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I talked about drafting, the team building in the first half of this show, but you also have to look at Sam Darnold and the success that he's had. And although I don't think he did anything really good last night, he just didn't turn the ball over and just allowed his defense to basically win that game for the Seahawks because, boy, oh boy, that Seattle defense was humming. But he did play his best game of his career in the NFC Championship game because he did have to go win that game in that dueling home matchup against Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. So you look at what Darnold has done over the last 2 years, won a Super Bowl this year, won 14 games in Minnesota, and now this past year with Seattle. And this tells a story. I think 2 parts here. One, I think it tells you that more organizations fail a quarterback than a quarterback fails an organization. But it also tells you that I don't think you need to draft a quarterback in the top 10 to win. And I got to give major shout-outs to our Steelers host, Jack Sperry, for bringing this stat up in the office late last week before the Super Bowl. You know how many quarterbacks have been drafted inside the top 10 by their respective team and won a Super Bowl without having to trade up to go get them? The answer is 1. That quarterback would be Eli Manning with the New York Giants. Like, really think about the last 20-year Super Bowls. The quarterbacks have not been drafted by teams that are tanking and stink and taking these high-profile guys. No, the teams that are winning have the ability to find high-level quarterback play in the mid to late first round, in the second round potentially, and they build a team more successful around them. So when you have this quarterback, they don't need to play hero ball. You look at the hero ball quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. What have they won? Nothing. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes has won a lot, but he's also one of one top 5 quarterback in NFL history. There will be outliers. But the consistent winning formula really has been high-level play in the trenches and then a quarterback who doesn't F it up. Seriously. And that might be Malik Willis's music. Did you hear that glass break in the background? Because Willis, although he wasn't a top pick, former day 2 selection, he's been a backup. He was thought of as someone who could go in round 1 with all of his talent. Plays really well with the Packers this past year in his 2 starts. Dominates the Bears and Ravens. And now he'll be in line to be a starting quarterback. Is this someone that Miami should take a swing on and sign to a relatively friendly contract, 1 year, $12 million potential to give him that 1 year shot to be a starter or a bridge quarterback? And maybe he gets the Sam Darnold treatment, who showcased that he could be a starter in the NFL after signing a 1 year, $10 million deal with Minnesota in 2024. Might be a real honest thought here. And what say you? Does Sam Darnold and his success over the last 2 years make you want to sign Malik Willis in free agency? Type Y for yes or N for no. Close the show out here. I want to echo the same sentiment I've been trying to echo the entire show. You have to be able to draft starting level players, building block level guys, not only in round 1, but everywhere. You do not stand a chance if you cannot. And yeah, you look at the Seattle Seahawks and like their top players, Byron Murphy, Devon Witherspoon, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Kenneth Walker, all drafted inside the top 2 rounds. But you supplement that with draft picks like A.J. Barner in round 4, Riq Woolen in round 5. Like, when you are able to find high-level starting players in round 3, round 4, round 5, that only allows you to have a higher ceiling on what you can accomplish as a football team. And Miami will desperately need to do this in a high-level way themselves because they have so many needs. On offense, we know the quarterback, but they need a right tackle to replace Austin Jackson. You could probably argue left guard and right guard as well. You need a wide receiver too. You need a starting tight end. And on defense, that's where the issues more derive from because you need more in the trenches. Yeah, you could try to see what develops there between your young defensive lineman trio, but you need more edges. You need more corners. You need a safety. Like, I say all of this, but I also don't want to focus on drafting for need. Miami is not even close to competing, but if they make the right investments in the draft, make the right signings in free agency, they can be in the playoffs. They can be on the biggest stage in 3 to 4 years. They really can be. And I'm not just trying to sell you guys on this. We've seen turnarounds just as quick. You just need to be able to find 3, 4 building blocks in every draft. Miami has 8 draft picks right now for this upcoming draft. They have 5 picks inside the top 90. So you will have opportunities. And I don't want to put a specific boundary on it, but like Miami has 5 picks inside the top 90, right? If they make all 5 of those picks, I'm telling you right now, 3 of them have to be starting level or high level starting caliber type of guys. They just have to be. If you want to be competitive in the playoffs in 3 years, you have to start building a base layer, and that starts in this year's draft. And boy, oh boy, this is an important one for Jon-Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley. That will do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us on this Monday morning edition of Dolphins Today. We'll be back with a video later this afternoon, so make sure you subscribe and join us.